Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's SecurityBoulevard.com webinar, brought to you by Techstrong and Rubrik. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning. We've got an exciting presentation ahead, but first I have just a couple of housekeeping notes. First, today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion or you'd like to share it with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live webinar today. If you have any questions, we want you to direct those to the Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. That's also where you'll find our chat tab, where we want you to engage with your fellow audience members. Finally, at the conclusion of this webinar, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around. So our topic today is Ransomware Investigation, the complete demo. And I'm joined today by Mike Preston, Senior Developer Advocate at Rubrik, and Jeff Inouye, Technical Architect at Rubrik. It's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Jeff to get us started, but thank you both so much for being here with us.
Cool, thanks. So welcome everybody. My name is Jeff Inouye. I'm with Rubrik Tech Marketing, here with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Mike Preston, who's a Senior Developer Advocate. Our contact info is here, and please feel free to reach out in the chat window for questions, and we'll go ahead and get those fielded. All right, so a quick agenda. We'll go through bullets 1 and 2 pretty quickly, but we'll cover the ransomware landscape as we see it today. And then we'll talk about Zero Trust data security as a strategy and how that aligns with our platform. And then Mike will jump in for a deep dive on how ransomware investigation works, and then we'll follow that up with the demo. All right, so we have a quick poll question, and that is, how has your concern around ransomware changed over the past 2 years? So I think we're going to pop that up, and we'll wait for a couple of responses to trickle in here. All right, Liv, is it cool if I move on?
Yep, I'll end the poll.
Awesome. All right, thanks everyone. All right, so the first thing that we want to talk about is the ransomware landscape. And this isn't something that we want to belabor the point on. So we're kind of going to throw a little bit of funny images at you here. So here's what we have as the modern attacker, the modern hacker. We've kind of found this to be pretty funny because if you look closely, the monitor is not plugged in. He doesn't have a surge protector. And if you look even closer, he doesn't have any shoes on. So the key point here is that he's not prepared. And the funny thing is that attackers don't really need to be as prepared today. Because we all know there's an underground network and economy that's thriving in this marketplace for early stage breaches as well as packaged exploits. And that's being seen here, as we predict in 2021 for it to hit $6 trillion in ransomware payments. And what's interesting is that it doesn't matter which vertical or where you live or what time of year, the trend continues to go up. So really the only thing that we can do here is be prepared and put a framework around, how we can secure our data. All right, so as Rubrik customers, you know that, we started off as a company, replacing legacy backup, or that model where we bring our architecture and the infrastructure as IT ops people, and then we would install applications on top, which would serve as the backup application. But what's interesting, if we look at this holistically, is that the enterprise applications, everything from our on-prem stuff to cloud and to SaaS, it's all a system of record. So it's a very high attack target for attackers to go after. The second piece that we found in here is that, with the prevalency of ransomware, the traditional perimeter through application security measures aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So what's happening is they're exploiting that data because it is, again, that single source of record. And if we recap, really the first thing that we see is, why are organizations having to pay for the ransom? And the first one is super simple, right? Your backups are compromised. There's no way to recover, so we have to pay the ransom. The second option is where most of us live in IT ops in the last 15 years, is that we engage IT ops. And that's where I used to work, right? So when we had particular security incidents, we would always engage IT ops to say, okay, what can we recover? Do we have backups? And more importantly, when is our last backup taken? The second part is engaging security ops. And they're going to ask some really pointed questions. And the first is, is our data protected, and when can we recover from? But then as we expand on that, we go with, where's ransomware, I guess, and how can it be investigated from within our data set? And then has there been any data that, is sensitive in nature that it could have been exposed? This kind of is twofold because there's preparation involved there. If we can secure that data and protect it earlier, then we also know the locality of that data itself. The fourth is that can the incidents be contained? So this is, again, twofold. We have to understand the blast radius, but then we also have to use things like threat hunting for indicators of compromise to be able to track down, when the genesis of that attack is. And the fifth one, which is my favorite, is do we have any way to orchestrate the recovery so we can make sure that we can get our applications back online? So again, as Rubrik customers, you understand the data protection side, but now this is becoming more of a part of a data security strategy, because the perimeter through the application security components that we talked about are continuing to, I should step back. Those are very important pieces, but an additional piece is at the point of data where we can secure that and make sure that we have the ability to recover. And this aligns to 5 of our applications that we're going to present on. More importantly, the one that we're going to be doing the deep dive on is ransomware investigation. But as we move from left to right, zero trust data protection. So as you guys are all well aware, is that we have a SaaS platform that acts as a control plane. So we can coordinate with those CDM clusters that you have in your data centers today. So we can do things like Azure SQL protection or cloud native protection with AWS, things like that. Because it's a SaaS platform, it makes it very flexible for us to be able to protect data everywhere. The second is the ransomware investigation piece that we'll do a deep dive on. So can we discover data anomalies within our data sets by using learning models and making sure that we fine tune our system, again, in that SaaS platform, to be able to provide our customers with a better service for anomaly detection. And the third is the sensitive data discovery. This is a really important one because, again, if we think about all of our applications and all of our data, that's a very interesting piece off of production to be able to work from without impacting production workloads. And the fourth is the incident containment. This is new for us within our newer releases. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But here we want to look for our indicators of compromise through our backups, again, with that same leverage point that we aren't going to be interacting directly with production, so we don't worry about the production impact that it could potentially have. The last is orchestrated application recovery. And this is an important piece because now what we can do with that SaaS control plane, we can bring an application that can orchestrate the recoveries and segment the data movement, which is facilitated by something like CDM. And again, coming back to the strategy piece, this is really where we align in terms of NIST security standards. So if we look at protection, detection, analysis, and containment, eradication, and recovery, we align to those pieces so that we make sure our customers have a data security strategy in place. All right, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mike. He's going to cover the deep dive on ransomware investigation, and I will jump in the chat and answer any questions.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff.
No problem.
Oh, let me share my screen. Famous last words, right? Okay, we should be able to see the slides again, right?
Good to go here.
Perfect. All right. All right, yeah. So I'm going to jump into sort of a deep dive as to how our ransomware investigation, that's the product formerly known as Radar, how it actually works technically, like what's going on behind the scenes. And I'll have, a handful of slides about how that works But what I want to highlight is as we move into the demo, you'll see like I have all these fancy, words like machine learning and algorithms and anomalies and all this stuff that's happening behind the scenes. But once we jump into the demo, there's really, it's only a few clicks that we could show. So it really will highlight sort of the simplicity of Rubrik and how we always aim to abstract away everything as well. And I'm just going to go back one slide too, because I do want to kind of say the zero trust data protection piece here is really what drives everything else on this list. So, the fact that we can provide an immutable platform that ransomware can't get at, one that's logically air-gapped away from the network, that's really what allows us to, enable our customers to recover using Rubrik. And it's what enables all of the ransomware investigation, the sensitive data discovery, and the incident containment, the threat hunting. It's all that metadata and everything we collect during these backups that is really what matters. So when we jump in, specifically to ransomware remediation, there was some challenges, that we saw in place. And, some of the biggest ones were, customers really have to choose between a few things, right? The first one being quick recovery. This is a lot of times the most important thing, right? We want to get our applications and our services back up and recovered for our end users and our customers. So we want to restore access. But then we also have this whole, we need to determine the root cause, right? So without, discovering what the root cause is, we really increase our chances of just being reinfected or having further spread when we do recover. And then finally, we also want to minimize data loss, right? So as with any restoration, we really want to ensure that, we're restoring a last known clean, good point in time copy of our data. We're not having to go back a month just because we know that's clean. We want to pinpoint, maybe it's only 2 days ago, maybe it's 3 days ago, maybe it's an hour ago. So we really have to choose between these three things. And, while we can solve all of these challenges, the biggest problem is a lot of times how organizations go about prioritizing this. Because, for instance, if we, prioritize quick recovery, we can go ahead and grant access back, but, we leave the organization at risk of reinfection. And then, when we perform things like mass restores or orchestrated restores, we often, may be recovering data on top of known good copies of data. So maybe we're restoring applications and services that we don't need to, that weren't affected. The same goes, so maybe we prioritize that root cause, but obviously, doing that triage and that root cause analysis takes time. So once again, we're losing the quick recovery and return to operations. And we usually incur downtime and different things during that. So these are the real challenges that we set out to solve with our ransomware investigation product. And thankfully we can, help you not have to choose between these three priorities. So first of all, what does ransomware investigation do for us? The first thing is, it's a clean, simple UI. We take pride in our UIs that we deploy here at Rubrik. And we can quickly see sort of at a glance, how things are changing and how they have changed in the past. Secondly, we utilize machine learning in behind the scenes to, establish these baselines for the objects that it's analyzing. And from there, we can proactively, detect what's an abnormal change, right? Do we have things like, a lot of files that have been deleted, a lot of files that have been modified? What type of files are these? Are they, is there a whole bunch of encrypted Office files like docx and things like that? So the machine learning takes, all of that stuff and takes it into Factor and can, alert us via the UI or emails, or even integrate into sort of your SOAR and some applications that you might have, like Palo Alto Networks, Cortex XSOAR, so you can get sort of that network orchestration as well and security orchestration tools happening. So the thing is, we not only flag just anomalies, but we allow for the organization to quickly see the impact that the attack has had, right? We can see right within the UI as it's going through here, we can drill down into the files and folders themselves. that greatly minimizes the time spent performing this root cause analysis. Like trying to figure out how far an attack went into your environment is a long and tedious task for your security team. And we can really help since we collect all this metadata and do all this scans. And then finally, we're tightly integrated into the zero trust data protection, as Jeff said, so we can allow organizations to leverage all the familiar Rubrik recovery methods like live mount and file level recovery and all of that stuff, even the orchestrated application recovery. We can allow users to leverage these recovery mechanisms right directly from within ransomware investigation. And then also, all of the metadata analysis and the blast radius determination and all of this stuff is obviously performed against your backup data, right? We're not going into your production environment and consuming resources. So we're using, our on-premises version of CDM that we have, as well as the Rubrik cloud resources to feed these through these machine learning models to do the encryption scans. And I'll get into more on that in a second. So as we get into, how this actually works, what the main benefits are, is number one is that machine learning. So we actually go through a couple different models, send your data through a couple different models to determine outputs. And what we can do is we can really get some meaningful insights out of that, right? So the models as they stand today are outputting a binary model or so of value, so like a yes or no, a 1 or 0, a true false. So in the case of anomaly detection, we'll take a number of inputs like the number of changed files, number of encrypted files, and they assign weights to each of these. And as it all goes through that model, at the end, we can say whether this is an anomaly or not. And then it further gets fed into, whether these files are encrypted or not, and things like that. So machine learning is a really great choice for anomaly detection because we can constantly iterate, change the inputs, and actually change the actual models in behind the scenes to sort of, constantly improve and iterate upon all of this stuff. Secondly is the training. So as far as how we train these models, we got data from multiple sources. So this includes, actual real world ransomware attacks that have been, executed within air-gapped environments, along with, a ton of different simulations of the various different types of ransomware that's out in the wild today. So the data gets fed into those models and it looks at, all the factors such as the files that were deleted, what types of files they were, things like that. And then that's how we can output all of these predictions and detections, which get verified, tested, and labeled, and then sent right back into the model again. So we can tweak things as we please and just constantly train these models, allowing us to become more and more accurate over time. A little bit about sort of the approach we take in terms of phases, because it is important. It's how we can scale so high, how we can have so many customers using ransomware investigation at the same time, and not, that's number one, the choice, why we made the choice to use cloud resources for that, elasticity and the ability to scale. But basically how it works is only the changes between your backups are sent up to, only metadata about the changes between your backups are sent up to the first machine learning model, which looks for anomalies. And subsequently, so we look at those changes and it goes through, detects anomalies. Only those anomalies that it detects are again sent into the second model, which looks for encryption. So what that means is, we're not sending full loads of data into one model and then full loads of data into another. We're only sending changes into the anomalies, and the anomalies are only getting sent into the encryption because. So finally, sort of, a data locality, thing, because I know this question comes up a lot, like, hey, I don't need you, sending all my data up into Rubrik's SaaS platform, but it is only metadata. So it is only data about your data. So the number of changed files, what types of files, things they were, your actual data never leaves the confines of your data center. So only the metadata goes up into those machine learning models. And then there are some processes, obviously, when we scan to detect if a file is encrypted, we obviously need access to that file. So those instructions will get sent back down to the on-premises version of Rubrik that you have running, and it will do the encryption scans there. So your data never actually goes up into the Rubrik SaaS platform. So sort of end to end, how this all works, and I'll go through this quickly, and then we'll jump into a demo. But I think it's important to understand what exactly is happening. So the process really begins once you complete a backup. So once that backup completes, we go ahead and we mount that backup on the on-premises version, and we generate what we call a file system metadata file. So that contains a bunch of information about the backup itself. Things like, what files are in there, what the sizes are, ACLs, the path where they are on the backup or within your operating system. And this FMD file gets compared with your previous FMD file, so say last night's backup, and then a diff gets generated, to determine what's different between these two backups. So that diff then gets uploaded to the ransomware investigation. That's when it goes through that first machine learning model. So again, it's only metadata that gets through here. It runs through the anomaly detection. It goes through and detects, hey, here's a list of files that we think are anomalous. So and that gets reported into the ransomware investigation UI. So we can see that immediately as it happens. So that anomaly list also goes up, it goes back down to the on-premises Rubrik software, where it gets scanned for things like encryption, right? So we go ahead and we scan for encryption. We store that information locally on premises in an SS table, and then that gets sent back up into the encryption detection machine learning model, where we again, can see things like type of files and different stuff like that. And this is where we really get into, hey, this looks like a ransomware event. So this is where, we might see a ton of Office files which have been encrypted and things like that. And then, that again gets uploaded to the UI and the results displayed. So that's basically what happens in terms of, our ransomware investigation. And it looks like a long, drawn out, complex process, and it is, but you'll see as we get into the demo here, it's, for the customer consuming this stuff, it really is a pretty simple process. So this is our technical marketing instance of Polaris. So we have a number of Rubrik clusters, and we're protecting, a wide variety of things. And this is a global dashboard, and we can see right away that we have some anomaly events that it's reporting on. So we just jump into there by clicking investigate, and we can see we have 3 different objects. This one's reporting twice because it's protected by 2 different Rubrik clusters. But right away we can see this demo radar virtual machine here, has a number of files that are marked as suspicious, because it's seen some deleted and added and modified files. So in terms of, determining that blast radius, we already know, what virtual machines have been affected just by logging in and clicking on investigate. Furthermore, we can drill right into the actual file structure of this virtual machine. So we can drill right in, we can see this file shares is really where most of these anomalies are taking place. And we can get right down into the actual files themselves, right? So we can see this fundraiser docx was actually deleted, and this docx.encrypted was added. So we can go ahead and we can filter, on suspicious and maybe deleted files here. And all of a sudden, we have a listing of everything on that virtual machine that has been affected by the attack. We can go ahead and we can change it and change what snapshots we're comparing. So if you want to, take a look at this, your most recent snapshot to another, maybe an older point in time, we can do that. We can dump a CSV of all these files. If you have a legal team that's, very, very concerned about what's been affected, we can get that information over to them quickly. But perhaps more importantly, is we can simply just select these files if it's a file level thing and click recover. Now I know I'll go through these in a second, but I know in a major ransomware event, the last thing you're going to do is probably do file level recoveries on your workloads. But this is really handy, I find, and I see a lot of customers that utilize this for maybe the CEO or the head of HR or somebody needs access to data when it's been encrypted and they need it now before you even begin sort of your restore process. Maybe it's something important. Maybe it's your ransomware remediation plan that's been encrypted. You can jump in here quickly and get that back. Well, the options really are, you can download it, you can send it back to production, or we can send it, back to another location within production. And this is handy, especially export, as we can go ahead and we can, restore these into maybe an isolated network or a sandbox type of environment for your security teams to go ahead and do, further triage on and different things like that. But again, the most I would say common restore method is going to be, full image level recoveries. And we can go ahead and just click recover full snapshot here. And as you see, we kind of get a mapping of where all these anomalies have taken place. So we can go, if we need to, and go back and change to, a spot where we don't see anomalies flagged if we want to make sure, we're actually recovering a clean copy here. And then we get all of our familiar Rubrik recovery methods. So given that I think most of everyone here is a Rubrik customer, you probably know about all these, right? Live mount and instant recovery are great for, really, really quickly returning access to our end users, giving our customers access immediately. Again, live mount and export, great options for if we want to take, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 virtual machines which work together, restore them into an isolated environment and let our security teams sort of have a look at what's happening there. We also have in-place recovery, which is our newest recovery method, or our latest recovery method. And that essentially, what it does is essentially rewind your production virtual machine in time. So basically only those changed blocks that have changed between what's in production and what's in the backup will be copied back, and it will actually go right back into the original virtual machine. So it doesn't create a new virtual machine. It, at times people need to maintain the BIOS of the virtual machine for certain reasons and things like that. So it doesn't affect anything like that. There's no new UUIDs generated in vCenter. It actually puts it right back into the original virtual machine. So, I mean, we can go ahead and select live mount here and actually just, give it a spot to go. The advanced settings, and we can see how fast this actually happens, right? So that live mount's kicked off, and I beg that it's probably already created this virtual machine in here for us. Oh yeah, I'm going to be wrong this time.
While that's refreshing, I think that's a really good use case, in terms of, maybe it's IT operations alerting security operations for an anomaly, right? And we can queue those up into a sandbox for them to do an analysis on. That's a very proactive approach to being able to use our product, and something that you probably already have today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it's still creating the data store here. Usually this happens, within seconds, and I struggle to get back into vSphere to actually, see what happens. It's probably because I chose a later restore point possibly, but eventually this will pop in and power on. There it's started, oh no, that's the old live mount that it's going on. But essentially what this does is allow us to, utilize the Rubrik as a vSphere data store, and, and very quickly get this, these virtual machines back up and running. Another few things, because I think look, it failed. Okay, so there's something going on here. Oh, I know exactly what's happening. That's my bad. I sent it to ESXi 22, which is down at the moment. So that's my bad. But while we're in here, I do want to highlight a few other things, and these will stretch, a little bit further from, ransomware investigation, but we do have some more upcoming sort of Rubrik Live webinars where we'll dive into a few things. But if I head back to that section there where we've seen some, so we can see, here's some file shares. The next logical question before you recover might be, so this file shares folder has been affected. What was in there? Is there any sensitive data in there? So you can quickly follow, into our sensitive data discovery service here to actually go ahead and scan and see, classifications of hits and different things like that. So we'll have a whole nother webinar where we talk, technically about how this works, as well as, our newest sort of functionality with ransomware investigation, and that's our threat hunting. So our ability to, jump in and actually scan these backups using YAR rules, if people are familiar with that, or file hashes to actually find malware, where we can actually jump in and pinpoint, exact files that might contain malware, so we can, ensure that we're not reinfecting our environment. So there'll be a whole nother webinar on the sensitive data discovery, and a whole nother webinar on the actual threat hunting as well. So if you're super interested, definitely, sign up for those. They're coming up very, very shortly.
And I think there's one teed up for orchestrated application recovery as well.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, I think that's, kind of drawing back from when I was presenting, in that, this becomes a part of the secure data security strategy, right? And your ability to recover. Because we're taking all the information that comes out of something like ransomware investigation, then plugging it in and integrating it with our other applications. So there's more interesting, actionable insights, if you will, as opposed to ransomware investigation on its own.
Absolutely. So to kind of wrap up here, I guess, yeah, here's another poll question if we want to pop that up. Like, is anyone interested in actually, getting a free trial of the ransomware investigation? Because we do have the ability to, I don't even know how to pop up polls. I think Liv or someone maybe can do that. But if anyone's interested, we'll pop that question up, or, you can mention in the chat, or we'll reach out afterwards as well. Definitely, click yes, and we'll get in touch, because this is, again, it's not something you need to install within your environment. We just give you access to the Rubrik SaaS offering. We enable the service within your Rubrik account, and away you go. You can check it out, kick the tires yourself, because I know it's nice to see these things, but it's way better to get it within your environment and check this out. So if you're interested, yep, definitely, click that in the poll. Also, there's a lot of customers that have used this successfully. So Langs is just one. There's a great story on our website about Langs that, when they came in, they noticed, that certain things were down. And then, they restored them, and then it was weeks later, all of a sudden their entire infrastructure was down, and they were able to, within 25 minutes, get some key virtual machines back up and going, identify, what's been affected, and then, 1 hour full time to recover a lot of their mission critical services with no data loss, which is a super good story. And this is just one, and there's many, many others. You've probably seen the city of Durham, which is another one that was a great success story for us. So we're helping customers recover from ransomware and detect blast radiuses and all that stuff all over the world, all the time. And that's sort of what has driven this. So this is, the industry's first sort of, we're gonna back up our claims here and offer up to $5 million of a ransomware recovery warranty. So that's if, you are on Rubrik Enterprise Edition. We have a list of, security best practices that you should be following, things like enabling, multi-factor authentication and different things like that. Meeting that criteria, you could qualify if you get hit with ransomware, and you cannot recover with Rubrik. We will, stand behind our product with a warranty. So with that, sort of next steps, definitely there's the link if you want to go sign up for that free trial. If you didn't say yes, there's there's a ton of different, more ransomware investigation info on our website there. And then, like I mentioned, join us for more of these Rubrik Live demos, because we are going to dive into each one of those 5 pillars that we had in detail. So if you want to see more on the sensitive data discovery, or more on the threat hunting, or more on, as Jeff said, the orchestrated application recovery, definitely reach out. You have our emails there. If you have questions that come up later, go ahead and send them across. If you're having trouble getting that free trial, let me know. We can help you out. But with that, I think we'll jump in to see if we have any questions at all.
We've been fielding a couple of questions. Nothing is unanswered at this point, so win-win.
Nice. Maybe I'll just leave that up for now.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for such an awesome presentation. I think this was really insightful and helpful. If we don't have any questions trickle in the next couple of minutes, we'll just go ahead and close this out, but we really appreciate everyone's time today. So thanks for hopping on. I know a couple of folks have asked if the recording will be shared. Yes, you will see that in your inbox, likely this afternoon, if not tomorrow morning. So just keep an eye out for that.
That's right. Thank you, Olivia. So we'll also be posting that on the Security Boulevard website at securityboulevard.com/webinars, and be sure to look in the on-demand section. So quickly before we close out, we do have 4 $25 Amazon gift cards to give away. Our first winner is Cal H. Our second winner is Kevin D. Our third winner is Gang Y. And our fourth and final winner is Bianca P. So congratulations to the 4 of you. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. And if you don't receive an email, just check your spam folder. Mike and Jeff, thank you again so much for taking the time to be with us. I'd like to thank Rubrik for sponsoring today's webinar. And of course, my final thanks goes to you, our audience. We appreciate you spending your time with us today. Please just take one extra moment to fill out our post-webinar survey, and we hope to see you at an upcoming Techstrong Learning webinar. Everyone have a great rest of your day.